You now tuned in to the Gumptown Podcast. I'm your boy Doug B. We ain't got nothing to talk about, but we got something to talk about. Let's go. Good people. Welcome back to the Gumptown Podcast, episode 126. I'm your boy Doug B. If you tuned in to this podcast, thank you for your time and your attention. I really appreciate you giving this podcast a shot. Today's guest is the founder and owner of Sweetie B's Arms Foundation. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I'm sure we'll all be inspired by her story. Let's chop it up with Shontoria Quarles. Shontoria, how's it going?
Good. How you feeling today?
Glad to hear that. All is well on my end, too. First things first, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to chop it up with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I know we've been trying to get this thing locked in for a couple of weeks now, so I'm super excited to, be here, speak with you, empower what you got going on, and at the same time express what I got going on as well.
Yes, ma'am. Good stuff. So, of course, here to talk about Sweetie B's Arms Foundation and all the great things you have going on with the foundation. But before we go there, let's get to know the woman behind it all. So, you were born and raised in the Gump. What was your upbringing like in the city?
Cool. So, born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama. From the West Side. I am a native. I am a fourth generation free slave. I was able and fortunate to meet my great grandmother and live with her, spend time with her. She was a first generation free slave and a first generation homeowner without sharecropping. So my upbringing was really, really rooted in family. We spent a lot of time together. It wasn't no going to different people's houses, things of that nature. It was really quaint. I can honestly say it was really quaint. It was really powerful. And I was surrounded by a lot of strong Black women and strong Black family values. The men in my family married once. Most of them didn't have outside children. It was very limited on that. So it was a very tight knit community within my family. My family was the community. My grandfather was heavy in entrepreneurship. I had an uncle that was deep in farming, and I had another uncle that was heavy in the music industry. So, we were a well-rounded, well-versed family. Everybody had a role to play, and they learned how to play those roles, and it worked great for our ecosystem.
Wow, what a powerful story and a powerful family structure and dynamic. Sounds like you had a great village around you when you were growing up.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was fortunate enough to have men and married men around me heavy. So, how I dealt with certain situations in life, I had those tools to pull from. I had those experiences to pull from, especially in a male dominated, workforce. Um, it was more sound working as a woman in the workforce, knowing when you see certain patterns, you know how to react to them because you've had those same type of male figures, all your life. It wasn't nothing new, when you saw certain things. So it kind of gave me a little chin up to how to navigate certain situations. But I'm thankful for the men and the women in my family for sure.
Absolutely. And everything you just said is so great and it's so powerful to not only have that structure around you, but to actually absorb that game and apply it later on in life because it's easy to be around somebody that's giving you those type of gems and you could have easily ignored them or disregarded what they had to say. But it's great that you were able to have that village, have the male dynamic, the female dynamic, and then to your point, just that married dynamic. It just equipped you with everything that I'm pretty sure that you're still applying to this day.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'll tell anybody. Um, it is difficult, especially first of all, in 2024. Because like I said, being a fourth generation free slave, and having that background and seeing, the family dynamic then, and then looking at what it is now, how versed it is, and how many opportunities and different ways and different types of families you have, being the 80s baby that I am and see those different transitions, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have that flexibility because from the background that I come from, it was what it was. Man provides, woman did what she did to hustle, and then that's what it was. That was the 50-50 split. But now the different types of relationships and types of cohabitations and situationships. And being more flexible to be an individual as well as be a unit. It's a beautiful thing, man. And I'm happy to have uh both spectrums to pull from in my own personal endeavors.
Yes, ma'am. Powerful stuff. So you go on to grow up on the west side of Montgomery, graduate from Lanier High School in '06, and you go around the street to attend the Alabama State University. What was the HBCU experience like for you?
Oh, it's classic. It's a classic experience. I one thing that people don't prepare you for the HBCU experience is HBCU experience gives you real life. You have to consciously make a decision to work or play. And that's the aspect of it that a lot of people don't talk about when you deal with that HBCU experience. Yes, you come for education. Yes, you come, to one up your game, depending on whatever it is that you're doing, in whichever industry. But because it's us and how we move, and as a people, the energy that we have, the synergy that we have, we can look at each other from across the quad and know what's up is up. All of those nuances that happens on that HBCU campus, it's real life.
Hmm.
Because when you get in a work field and get in your industry, and my major was communications and broadcast, and I was at PR, to look across a room and you on one PR team, they on the other PR team, and you're the only two that look like each other, and y'all can look at each other across the room and be like, "Yo, it's up," and it's still all good. That's life, those experiences, those people, that synergy. Only an HBCU campus can teach you how to maneuver in a room.
Mm. That's powerful stuff, and your perspective is spot on just in terms of having to decide to work or play. And unfortunately, I've witnessed people do too much of either or. I work too much and never have any fun, always in the books,
Right.
or they party too much and never have time for the books, and they end up not finishing what they came to school to start. And it's no knock either way, but like just to your point, just pretty much summing up what you're saying, just finding that balance because we can definitely when there's a lot of us in the mix, it's easy to get distracted because if you see,
For sure.
I mean, straight up, because it just like you see such and such about to go to this party, go to this mix, and you know you need to be working on this paper, but you have to really just find that balance. You really just have got to have that discipline. So the HBCU experience, nothing like it. So you being from Montgomery, what ultimately led to you staying home and attending state?
So so because I am a social butterfly. First of all, I'm a Libra, so I balance things out very well. As
Mhm.
academic as I was as extremely, recreational I was. And so honestly, my college career was a direct reflection of my high school career. When I got into high school, I ended up getting accepted to Brew Tech, which is a magnet school here. And so I hated it. But I hated Brutech with a passion. Like it was so quiet, and like it was so um, you know, you could hear a pin drop in the hallways. Then that first year I couldn't play sports. There was no choir, couldn't do band, none of those things. I had no balance. It was just so structured. And so I begged my mom, like I begged, like, please just let me go and go to Lanier, like let me go and play sports, let me try out for band, I had to have that balance. Being an A student, A B on a roll student, depending on where I was in my college career, I mean in my high school career, I had to have that balance. So I left. Consequently, the same thing happened in my college career. I got accepted to University of Montevallo. Love made some of my lifetime friends at my freshman year at University of Montevallo that I still cherish, and is godmother to a bunch of kids from those people at University of Montevallo. But I was bored. I was bored to death, and so I did my freshman year in summer, and I left out of there, told my granddad what was going on. I'm a granddaddy's baby, and so told my granddad what was going on, and he was like, "Well, just come home and go to school. Save the money, save the money. Come home, go to ASU, go to school." And that's where I found my passion in mass communications. That led me to PR, public relations, which has now catapulted me into the field that I'm in now, which is project management.
Hmm. Wow. You talking about being able to pivot, being able to transition and make moves and just weave your way through situations to go from Brutech to Lanier. And it's so interesting that you say that because most people, because I went and graduated from Lee High School. Most of us, we thought the magnet schools was the place to be. You got to the magnet school,
Right.
yeah, right? You got to the magnet schools and realized, I'd rather be in a public school. Either way, it doesn't matter. You do whatever's best for you. I'm not saying either or is better than the other, but it's just cool just to hear your willingness to move and not stay somewhere where I'm not happy. I'm not being the best version. I'm not able to be the best version of me in this situation. So you go from Brutech to Lanier, graduate, go from Montevallo, come over to the Alabama State, and and you also talked about another big pivot you made while you were at the Alabama State when we were talking offline. Let's talk about that big pivot that happened during your junior year.
Yeah. So, um, and you know what? To back up a little bit, to dive into that a little bit more,
Hmm.
it's all about being self aware. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a household where we had the liberty to be ourselves. I had a grandfather, a father, a mom, and their thing was whatever you do, do it at home and do it in the safety. So, having my first experiences of drinking was at home with my granddad, so having that liberty to be myself allowed me when it came to my educational, my academics, what I could and couldn't do. It made me self-aware enough to know what I thrive in and what I don't thrive in, And sometimes I know when you have single parent households, not all the time, but sometimes you miss those little liberties, because you don't have that balance, the balances and checks to see, are they really doing this just to test it, or is it really going too far? You don't have those balances and checks. So I grew up in a household where I had those liberties, which allowed me to be able to pivot and change my mind and change course as long as I always had a plan.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? And so as long as you had a plan in my household, try it, try it. And so moving forward, when I got to ASU, the same thing happened again. I was in ASU. I was working at I started at Tracy Lockett's broadcast number. I was always a hands-on person. Like I said, I'm a Libra. I gotta have some type of balance. And so my freshman year, I started off and I volunteered with the late great Tracy Larkins. He had TLBN, and I started a show called The Vibing Lounge, which is, like I said, I was in mass communications and PR. Started that late night radio show, which was the first internet radio show in Montgomery County, radio station in Montgomery County. And so, in that, gaining that experience, gaining that, exposure to radio, and news in that space as a freshman, it only grew. So when I got to my sophomore year, I was afforded the opportunity to work with WVAS and help, in the process of what we had at that time called Bama State Radio, at 96.5. And so within that confine of, actual broadcast radio, going from internet radio to broadcast radio, was amazing jump for me in my career. So at that time, I'm still doing my academics, navigating through the HBCU experience, and already doing my externship credit hours in my sophomore year. Going into my junior year, we traveled a little bit because I got a chance to travel during that time at Bama State. We went to South by Southwest. I went to a couple of BET awards. I started doing media corresponding and got afforded the opportunity to work with Viacom in LA. And so I got it, and I didn't at that time. I didn't even understand what a offer letter was. Naive, just in school, not really knowing. And I took it to my professor. He has passed away as well now, Himzel. And we had a conversation, and he was like, "Hey, how long has this school been here?" And I said, "Well, yeah, ASU has been here for so and so, blah 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 blah." Just reading down the history, he was like, "So how long you think this opportunity is going to be for you?" And I just was stuck. I paused, and he was like, "I think if you can come back and finish your degree, go." And so I dropped out and took the job. I took an entry level marketing position, an entry level junior marketing position, at Viacom in 2012, and my career started then, and I never did go back and get my degree.
Wow, that's a powerful story, and it's even more powerful hearing you just go through the motions and go through everything. And it's just great going back to your upbringing, going back to that village that empowered you to make your own decisions and be the best you, like you said, as long as you had a plan. So in that moment, when that professor came to you with that offer, if you didn't have that family structure, you probably not yeah, it's fair to say you probably would have fumbled the opportunity because you'd have been on eggshells. Like, I don't want to go away to LA. I don't want to do this. I'm scared. But the fact that you had that family structure, it's so crazy how the things we go through coming up in life, how everything comes full circle at some point in life. We don't know when it's gonna come
Mm-hmm.
full circle. So that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I probably would have because I was already hesitant, and my
Hmm.
grandfather had already said no.
Oh wow.
Granddaddy was yeah, he was like, nah, you going to school.
Okay.
Like I said, being a fourth generation free slave, he didn't get an opportunity to go past the eighth grade.
Hmm.
My mom was the first college graduate. She had legal degrees. And so I'm next in line, and he was stone cold. No, you're not going. Like, you're gonna finish school, and if it's for you, it'll be there. And my mom was like, go to a couple of award shows out there, test the water, see what it's like. So at that time, I still was working as a correspondent, doing contract work as a correspondent, media correspondent for BET at that time. And we went out there. I went out there, testing the awards. Of course, got lost and all that stuff. Granddaddy panicked. Everything you could think of that went wrong on my first trip to LA did. Got on the wrong bus, was at the wrong hotel, got off the wrong shuttle when I got off my plane. Everything that you could possibly imagine going wrong. And for granddad to say, I told you so, happened.
Mm.
It happened that trip for that particular BT awards. But ultimately I made my own decision. And that part of it is history. It worked for me.
Yes,
Working
ma'am.
for working for me worked for me.
Mm. Yes, ma'am. And that's great that you, even though you had some pushback from family, in the end you made the decision that you wanted to make. And I'm sure you don't regret making that decision.
Oh, not at all. Oh, not at all.
Yes,
Not
ma'am.
at all. Those experiences I would treasure. The people that I met, I would treasure. Some people that are still in those entertainment circles and circuits. I've seen it for my birthday. We are still a tight knit family because the industry is not a big pool of people. It's not. Once you get and once you get into the paper, what I call the paper, you have the performance side and the paperwork side.
Hmm.
And fortunately, I was on the paperwork side. As a PR, I was on the paperwork side. At that time. Now, the PR side is more of an influencer type of situation. Which, hey, I respect it. As that part of it grows and develops, put your face out there because a lot of people never saw. In the early 2010s, you never saw who was behind the scenes, booking and planning tours. We were faceless, and so salute to the influencers that the PR people and the bookers that have a face to their brand, so salute to them.
Yes, ma'am. So you make the move from the Gump out to LA. Did you experience any culture shock when you moved out there initially? If so, what were some of those culture shocks?
Um, so I'm gonna say yes and no.
Mhm.
Because I'm from the South, I can notice racism for 10 miles away. I don't
Right.
care if it's shady racism. I'm from the South. I'm from Montgomery. We are who we are. We and I am where I am.
Right.
So, that part of it, nah. The First of all, the food culture shock was a trip because at the end of the day it's soul food down here through and through. Soul
Right.
food, barbecue. You may have a couple of Chinese buffets, but and your fast food change. The culture shock for me was the food selection and learning about my body and learning about fresh vegetation, fresh produce, what fruit stands are, what the fruit lady is, um understanding how different cultures eat, and they all that part of it. The food industry aspect of it was the biggest culture shock for me being in LA. You know, Not never hearing about a vegetarian diet. Like, and I'm telling you, like, not hearing about a vegan diet.
Mhm.
All those terms in 2012, 13 were brand new to me. You know, if anything that was vegetation on my plate was the cooked veggies in a salad. you
Right.
know Everything else had. And then plus I didn't eat pork. I stopped eating pork at about maybe 15, 14 years old, 15 years old.
Okay.
And so out there trying different things and trying different alternatives, Because at home, mama just would cook without pork for me. That was just the end of it, that it wasn't no, it was Southern soul food. Big, heavy, starchy breakfasts in the morning, lunchtime is snacks or whatever. Dinner is a full course meal, including peas, mac and cheese, right? The double starch plate with mac and cheese and rice, all those things.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
ooh, excuse me.
No problem.
And so the food out there was the biggest culture shock for me.
Yeah.
Having literally um having, and then the shopping, the markets, having Santuck every day, all day in certain places. That part of it that was pretty much the culture shock for me.
Yes, ma'am. Makes sense to your point, just in terms of racism, being able to identify that. Yeah, that's one of the superpowers we unfortunately gained being down here in Alabama. It's like you go other places, like you can tell when somebody's racially profiling or they looking at you sideways, like this person doesn't belong here or why they in here. So I understand that. And the point about the diet, spot on about that. One time, well, my first time going out there to LA, that is something I noticed. People eat clean out there. You see fruit stands
Yes.
everywhere, and even the fast food. I'll speak for In and Out. Even In and Out, even though it's fast food, it's not like heavy. You don't eat In and Out and be in this idle state. At least I wasn't. But here in the Gump, you go somewhere like Five Guys or Joe's. We just cook different down
Yeah.
here. Like to your point, we
Yeah.
just be
We cook,
so
and my mom used to talk about it was survivor food because you eat that heavy because you don't know where the next meal coming from.
right, right, right,
And
right.
so there, we eat to make sure we're full for a long time. They
Hmm.
eat just to nourish their body, and that's it. They don't even understand. They don't the full concept of being full is a totally different perception out there versus here,
Right. Yes,
and it's a
ma'am.
whole different reason. So for sure, that was the biggest, shock for me. Because when I tell you, I promise you, I was like almost a fruitarian. I explored every fruit that I could ever think that I had no idea of.
Mhm.
I ate so much fruit in LA, it was ridiculous. Like I literally thought I was gonna become a diabetic because I was literally like craving sweet fruit like that. It was crazy.
Yes, ma'am. Good stuff. So let's talk about Sweetie B's Arm Foundation. What you got going on over there?
So, Sweetie B is actually my grandmother. She is the wife of my grandfather, which is my mom's mom. And so, backstory about that. Throughout the course of my career as it pertains to entertainment, I had a couple of miscarriages, and being transparent about those miscarriages, some of them were unwanted, or unwarranted. I did not know, was focused on my career, it just didn't, wasn't good timing. And then and then two of them, I really wanted my kids. I was working towards them, and I just couldn't carry them. In that process of processing my grief, when I was at home, there was nowhere for anyone to get help in certain areas. Point in case, when you think about, grieving, everybody always it automatically goes to a funeral. That's the only time that you automatically think about grieving, crying at the funeral, crying after the funeral, and that's about it. But grief has a face of seven different emotions, um, five core and two subsidiary emotions. And so I was in Georgia. That time I was living in Gwinnett, and I was going through counseling. My best friend, she was like, "Hey, you need to go to counseling. That is a lot of trauma. You just walking around holding a ticking time bomb of grief, and you don't even know it because she has went through it as well." Went to counseling, thought none of it. Had a great time, connected with my counselor, got some things off my chest, thinking I'm doing good. And I'm standing in a grocery store. I think it was Kroger at that time. Yeah, I was standing in Kroger with my counselor. We were having a meeting. She was like, "Hey, we're gonna go to the store, get some snacks for our meeting. Can you stop by for me? Blah blah blah." And we end up getting it at the same time. We're standing in the store, and I'm just talking, like I'm talking to you right now, regular. And she stopped me. She said, "Tori, you don't hear that baby crying behind you?" I was like, "Nah, what baby?" And it dawned on me that I had remissed and repressed my grief so much I couldn't even hear a baby crying in the grocery store line. And we're in the checkout line. And anybody knows a baby that's having a fit, they can't have that candy in the line.
Hmm.
It's loud. It's, you know what I'm saying? There, I could not hear her. I could not hear the child. And so that made my therapist dive deeper into our sessions. And we did some really, really holistic healing practices. We went through a couple of programs. And so after going through that, getting back, to myself and to my senses, to my maternal instincts, because all those things were repressed. I came home to Montgomery and there was no place like that for any type of grief. And when I say any type of grief, grief comes in different. Grief is the lack of the negative emotion that you have because of lack or loss. That means you can lose your job and be grieving. You can lose your best friend. And I'm not talking about dead. I'm talking about you have a best friend, bromance, situationship, and it splits that can cause grief. You can also lose your sense of self. You're with someone in a relationship and you're completely off your trajectory of life. And now that that relationship is over, you don't even know who you are anymore. You're grieving.
Mm.
There was no place in Montgomery to help people holistically process grief. And so with Sweetie B's Arms, when that came to me, how that came about was towards the end of my last holistic session, I had a dream. I'm a big dreamer. I'm a big dreamer. I had a dream and my grandmother, Sweetie B, came to me. I was in a and probably some of the people who are pretty much older, they would probably remember Young Folk Village over here in West Montgomery. I was walking through Young Folk Village and down this hill, and my grandmother was there. And she was sitting, it was really pretty. It was all these golden bronze, beautiful colors. And she's sitting there, just like in a rocking chair, and it was just so beautiful with these vivid browns and oranges and tans and golds. And it was four little bronze babies flying around her, playing, laughing, giggling, just having a great time with grandma. And she looked at me and she said, I got them when you're ready. And I woke up. And in that moment, I knew I had to birth Sweetie Bee's Arms Foundation. Because that type of holistic healing, it's a lot of young men and young women who need that type of in-depth programs to help them not only release grief, but process grief, have those tools to help them mentally stabilize their grief process. And so at Sweetie Bee's Arms, what we are is a grief and reconciliation resource center where our goal is to create a safe space to give hugs, which is help understanding grief skillfully. And, that's how she was born.
Mm. Wow, that's so powerful. I appreciate you for being vulnerable and just sharing your miscarriages and sorry for your losses. And I definitely, definitely appreciate you for being vulnerable and transparent about that. And just wanting to bring that to Montgomery and having it, like you said earlier, the self-awareness, the awareness to identify that Montgomery didn't have that, didn't have a hub for people to come and get a holistic approach to grieving and healing. I think that's amazing because in our community, in the Black community, healing and therapy and all that stuff up until a couple years ago, mental health, it was all taboo. It wasn't something
Mm-hmm.
that was valued in the Black community. If you were labeled as crazy or you had to be put on meds and stuff like that. So it's great that you were able
Mm-hmm.
to, yes, ma'am. It was great that you were able to take your pain and turn it into purpose with this foundation. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it for even having this type of platform for me to be vulnerable because you can't be, in depth about the grittiness of life everywhere.
Right, right. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So you have that dream and you launched the foundation, you named it after your grandmother, which are all great things. And it transitions perfectly into my next portion. So whenever I have entrepreneurs, creators on the platform like yourself, I like to talk about three things: the aha moment, action, and audacity. You've already covered your aha moment, which sparked the idea to create Sweetie B Arms Foundation, the dream, all that great stuff. So the next portion, action. How long after the dream did it take you to come up with a name and actually launch the foundation?
So Sweetie Bee's Arms is my third venture. My first venture was my for profit, which is Sick Agency, which is my consulting firm, my PR consulting firm.
Hmm.
And then before that, we had Unity in the Community, where we bridge the gap between reality and what the youth see on TV, and we educate them about the business sides of the entertainment industry. So at that time of Sweetie Bee's Arms coming into fruition, Unity in the Community could have been about maybe 13, 14 years old. So we had already been doing nonprofit work, service work, community work for at least 10 years prior to um me going through my healing process with with my last miscarriage, and developing my, like you said, my aha moment.
Hmm.
So when I had that dream, I told my mom about it, because at that when we were searching for something for us to do together, because people think about miscarriage as just hurting that woman or that man, but it goes to the grandparents and anybody that's connected to that lineage. The loss of a child is a loss of a child, whether it's stillborn, in the womb, or 13, whatever that case may be, it touches more than just the parents. So when I brought it to my mom, who is now the matriarch of our family, it was a no-brainer, because I had that support system. She was like, you know what, well, how do we start this? I said, well, we could do it as a nonprofit. Let's stay within our wheelhouse. Let's make it a foundation where that we can raise money to help people. And we can also give these classes and services away to people in need. We'll have that, that business structure to allow it to take payment and give away, have that capacity to do both. And so because we were familiar with the 501c3 structure, the ins and outs of those protocols, it was a no-brainer to make it a foundation and make it a scholarship foundation at that, for these classes and courses that we have to help provide these services.
Mm. Wow. So this is your third venture, and just even, I think it's cool that you're even venturing into this nonprofit space because clearly you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the people, to give back to the people, and that's powerful in itself. So just in general, what encouraged you to want to come into this nonprofit space just as a whole?
Well, honestly, a lot of people get it confused because nonprofit does not mean non-business.
Right.
So I'll give it my noted example is the St. Jude Hospital.
Right.
Everyone in the St. Jude Hospital is a paid salary person. They have salary basis. Every doctor, every nurse, every physician, every janitor, every electrician, every plumber, each one of those positions are paid positions. The difference is between for me, a difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit is at the end of the year, you have to give away as much free as you make. It has to balance out. That's the only difference. So just like with Sweetie Bee's Arms, you could come in, you could pay for services, or if the Alabama State University wants to come and say, hey, we want you to host a summit or a seminar based on grief healing for athletes, how athletes can process grief as well as being an effective athlete on the field and off the field, being sound mentally and physically. We will provide that service. They will pay us for that service. But then we also have to go to T.S. Morris and give those babies free classes and free tools to help them start their journeys early. So it balances out. It's in a place of serving, as well as being proactive.
Okay, yeah, and I appreciate you educating me on that. I never even knew they were so similar like that. Okay, for profit and non-profit. I'm tracking now. That was a great breakdown. Very simplistic. Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate it because a lot, like I said, a lot of people hear, "Oh, you nonprofit, you don't make money." No, it's still business because you still have taxes.
Right.
You still have salaries. You still have workman's comp. You still have business insurance. You still have to make sure that it's financially structured within your banking system. You still have payroll. You still have all. You still have all of those same entities. The difference is you are required to make sure that you sow as much as you harvest.
Mm. Yes, ma'am. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. So you have your aha moment, you take action on your aha moment. It's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to put action behind it. It's a whole different animal to put the idea out to the world to be praised or criticized. That's where the audacity comes in. Who or what gave you the courage, the audacity to put Sweetie B Arms Foundation out to the world to be praised or criticized?
Every woman that has had a miscarriage that does not understand that that baby that you lost does not make you not a mother.
Mm,
Any woman that feels that gave me that willpower because I felt that way. I know what it felt like to feel like you're a failure at the thing that God created you to do, which was to procreate. So for any woman that feels like they're a failure at their core of being just who you are, just a born woman, we're here for you.
wow, that's powerful. Nothing else needs to be said. That's some powerful stuff. So you done great things with the foundation, and I know great things are coming down the pipeline, which leads to my next portion, vision. What are some of your short-term and long-term goals for the foundation that you feel comfortable sharing?
Some of our short-term goals right now is to beef up. Well, so our first year we had, we hit a couple pot rolls. We do have our brick and mortar and facilitating it as such. And so in our first, year we were individual client based. And so in 2024, we want to be program based. We want to be able to take these programs as we develop them with our board and our advisors, take these programs and put them in institutions, put them in offices, put them in companies. And so we want to be more program based this year. Short-term programs, short-lived programs, long-lived programs, as even as far as continuous training in some capacities. So, to streamline our programs and streamline our services to where they're more mobile and that we can do installations and organizations that can make a more lasting impact.
Mm. Yes, ma'am. Powerful stuff. So those are great goals, both short term, long term, and I'm sure whatever goals you set for yourself, you'll make them all come to fruition.
Try my best. Try my best.
Yes, ma'am. As we wrap up the podcast, I want to ask $1 million question. I started this podcast to highlight the greatness connected to the city, whether you were born here or lived here for a significant period of your life, for college, military, or work. You being a hometown hero. What makes you the most proud to be from the Gump?
Perspective. I am proud of my Montgomery perspective. I am thoroughly elated to have the perspective of life and the perspective of types of life. Um, because the thing about Montgomery is we're such a city of triumphs. Of course, people, try to focus on the negative history aspects of it, but the people who are still here, the formal, children of those times, we're still here. We're still living, we're still thriving, we're still making an impact. And to have those, like I said, perspectives from my great grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, now to me and to my children, you know, being in the vein of that lineage gives me a profound perspective that nobody else in the world can comprehend unless you came from the same place I came from.
Absolutely. Powerful stuff. So, Shontoria, how can the people connect with you? What are your social media handles and website?
Oh, for sure. So you can always reach out to me on social media. It's Lady Say That. Everybody knows my. For you who don't know me or do know me, my handle is still Lady Say That. LadySaydat. Type in my full name. You can. I'm one person that I am proud to finally be Googleable. Yes, I am. I'm very happy to be Googleable now. So, Shontoria, Shontoria, last name Quarles, Quarles. Look me up, find me on social media, find me on Google. And my name is very unique, so it's not very hard to find. Also our Sweetie Bee's Arms Foundation is at 2868 Zelda Road, right there in a brick shopping center where La Zona Rosa and Firehouse Subs is. So come by, set up an appointment, come check us out.
Yes, ma'am. And of course, I'll put all of those social media handles in the description of the episode. Hey, Shontoria, thanks again for the conversation. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, sir. Please keep up your good work for a platform for us to do what we do and showcase what we're doing because sometimes we're overlooked. So we salute you for shining light on us.
Yes, ma'am. Good people, that concludes another dope episode of the Gumptown Podcast. In the meantime, in between time, y'all know what to do. Be blessed, be safe, but most importantly, have the audacity to be you. Go on. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate your time and your attention. Until next time.